the three one that there's a Stephen Miller headed immigration one focused on deportations and scooping up thousands of immigrants. There's the Project 2025 kind of OMB focused one that's trying to break that department completely. And then there's the Doge Elon thing that is moving fast and breaking things. And all this is coming at a breakneck pace that's overwhelming everyone, to include our elected officials, as they try to deal with and keep up with it. And we'll have those conversations today. We're going to talk to some great guests. Mark Zaid, who's, of course, famous for his supporting whistleblowers in government, how he'll help. We've also got the incredible Representative Jared Huffman, which we actually talked to on Friday because of scheduling. And that, in this time and era, as you know, means the news is old, but we're going to have still a great conversation, and we'll update that too. So there's just a lot of moving pieces. In the meantime, the news is moving so fast. I don't think mainstream media can keep up with it. We can't keep up with it. It is just trying to sort it all out. But for me, one of the biggest breaking news, I'm sure you've heard it already, is it came out yesterday that Elon Musk has gained, and his people have basically gained access to the Treasury records of the entire United States government. Now, the Trump administration approved these plans to grant Treasury officials affiliated with the Elon Musk team access to the federal system that handles trillions of dollars in payments, according to two people, the reports that are coming out. What's really amazing is Trump Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent signed off on a plan to give access to specifically a guy named Tom Krause, who's actually the CEO of Cloud Software Group, who's now working for the Treasury Department. Has that job been approved? Has he had a background check in 2 weeks? I don't know, but he's the liaison to Trump's or Musk Doge group. One person said that Krause's role will be subject to safeguards. I'm doing air quotes for those who are listening, that would now not allow any ability to make changes to the system. The secretary, quote, was approving this contingent on it being essentially a read-only operation. So they can just read all of the payments that have gone out from the United States government ever, to include Elon Musk's contracting competitors. As you know, his company is a contract for the United States government. No one's stopping this. Now, there's been a huge internal struggle within Treasury over how much Musk and his allies can have access to, which is critical to payments. They've already saw it. The Trump administration already saw it. They put a memo out this week, which came and went, trying to freeze OMB payments and funds. Interestingly enough, David Lebrick, who I've heard really good things about from friends, was a longtime career official who oversaw Treasury's vast financing and payment operations. He suddenly resigned on Friday after clashing with Trump's officials over access to that system. He refused to give it to him because the system controls payments to Social Security, recipients, people entitled to tax funds, refunds, organizations receiving grants, as well as all the payments that go to federal workers and government contractors. A Treasury Department spokesperson now this is the best part, Treasury Department did not respond to any press inquiries. No one at the White House responded. Musk hasn't responded. It's just outrageous. So it goes on from there. And the terrifying part is this. Musk himself has suggested on Saturday that his government efficiency group's efforts to gain control over Treasury payments to Americans was about rooting out fraud or illicit payments. He tweeted, the Doge team discovered, among other things, that payment approval officers at Treasury were instructed always to approve payments, even to known fraudulent terrorist groups. They literally never denied a payment in their entire career, not even once. That's a fucking lie. Okay, that's not even true. The Bureau of Fiscal Service operates treasuries. They've stopped improper payments multiple times, totaling near $155 million. They've recovered $350 million in improper payments, and it goes on from there. Senate Democrats have expressed outrage. Ron Wyden, who is, of course, the Oregon Democrat, who is the ranking Democrat in the Senate Finance Committee, sent out a pretty extensive post and letter on Saturday demanding information, demanding a list of questions to gain information. I mean, the access is shocking, especially knowing that Elon Musk himself was denied a top-level security clearance in the United States government because reportedly last spring, in the fall, over his drug use and connections to foreign leaders like China, of all things. Senator Elizabeth Warren, the top Democrat on the Senate Banking Committee, also has called for an congressional investigation. There are safeguards in place that are meant to prevent incorrect payments. There's a do not pay portal that allows agencies to verify whether a recipient's dead or blacklisted from government contracting. There's multiple pieces in place. Under the Biden administration, that the Treasury said in October, the effort they'd been doing to stop a fraud had recorded more than $4 billion just in 2024. So to say that there's improper payments or illegal payments, or that they were banned from putting them out, is a complete fabrication of lie. It's kind of shocking that this is all being conducted on Twitter, the platform that Elon Musk owns. It's interesting to watch it unfold if you guys will go over there and watch. Musk will put something out, and then his little minions like Mario, Knopfel, and all these others will repeat it, and then you'll see their minions attacking people like us who are worried about it, saying, no, they're trying to save the country. The terrifying part is he's literally saying that now they have control, they will stop payments. And that's not the job of the Treasury Department. The Treasury Department is to make the payments. That's their job. Payments go through the Treasury. The agencies that control different programs actually are the ones who put in the payment proper work and modify it and stop it. This is a vast change in how our government works, and we're hearing silence. One thing I've been pointing out regularly on Twitter is, one of the reasons, and on social media, one of the reasons that they want to stop completely using TikTok. The reason Tom Cotton, for example, was against TikTok was the belief that they were gathering massive amounts of information on U.S. citizens, and the Chinese government could have access to that. Well, now the guy that owns Twitter has access to all of our information, all of it. Your social security information, your social security payments, your home address, how long, when you retire. If you could think of a single thing, if you've received a check from the United States government ever, they now have access to that information. And we don't know who these people are. They weren't vetted. They weren't cleared. We don't know who they are. But now they have access to all that. It's very terrifying. Imagine it being hacked, because these guys, we don't know what their security clearance is. There's actually reports coming out from government officials who are leaking information that they just marched into OMB and Treasury and plugged in hard drives. For those who don't understand, like, there's computer systems that are classified in the military and classified in the government and unclassified. You're not allowed to actually plug in, say, a mobile drive or something, an external drive, to a classified computer and download that information on purpose. Okay, that's illegal. There's rumors they're literally walking in, just plugging their own hard drives into our secure computers. To say it's terrifying and should be terrifying is true. I can only hope that our government leaders are jumping in to stop this. But that is the big news that came out this week about access for the Doge. They're just running around breaking things with almost no oversight from anyone whatsoever. At the same time, yesterday, Donald Trump launched yet another trade war, because the first one was so much fun. And this time, though, it's against our closest allies. Trump on Saturday signed an order to impose stiff tariffs on imports from Mexico, Canada, and China, drawing swift retaliation and undeniable sense of betrayal from both countries. I mean, if any of you have Canadian friends, for example, I've never seen so much frustration and anger from them. The announced tariffs are 25% on most of the products from Canada and Mexico, an increase of 10% on those coming from China, on top of previous tariffs that are in place. So a 10% across the board on China. He posted that the tariffs are necessary to protect Americans, pressing the three nations to do more to curb the manufacture and export of fentanyl, and for Canada and Mexico to reduce illegal immigrants into the U.S. Obviously, Canada's famous for illegal immigrants coming across our border. Trump declared the tariffs, if sustained, will cause inflation to significantly worsen, threatening the trust many voters placed in him to reduce our costs, which I'm not going to touch. Trump declared an economic emergency in order to place these duties of 10% on imports from China, as I mentioned, the others. Trump's order includes a mechanism to escalate the rates charged by the U.S. against retaliation by other countries, raising the specter of more. Obviously, Canada already retaliated and Mexico already retaliated with very, very coordinated and targeted 25% increase on their side. Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau said yesterday in a very somber announcement that they would put 25% tariffs on up to $155 billion in U.S. imports, including alcohol and fruit. That's going to hurt us. He also channeled, and I think it's important, and I won't show the video, but he channeled, frankly, the betrayal that many Canadians are feeling. Reminding Americans that Canadian troops fought alongside us in Afghanistan and Iraq, helped respond to all the crises. We literally just had Canadian firefighting aircraft putting out the fires in LA. And now we're basically declaring a trade war on them, our closest allies. These tariffs are going into effect on Tuesday. This is the news is all saying, well, this could sabotage growth. No, guys, it's gonna sabotage growth. There's no question about it. It was kind of interesting too, seeing them talk about it. Like, well, avocados and mangoes. Look, I don't know where you guys live, but if you go to a grocery store right now and you want to eat blackberries, blueberries, raspberries, most of tomatoes, all of that fruit comes from Mexico. All of it. Any off-season fruit you're eating at this very moment is coming from Mexico, and that's all going to be taxed, and that's going to be passed on to you. But here's what's really disturbing for me. The order signed by Trump contains no mechanism for granting exceptions, which is really weird because, for example, home builders rely on Canadian lumber, as well as farmers, automakers, and other industries. There's been rumors in the auto industry that essentially auto parts that come from Canada won't be making their way across either border, shutting down auto production across both countries within a week. The official from the government did not provide any specific, this is where there are no specific benchmarks that could be met to lift the tariffs, saying only that the best measure would be fewer Americans dying from fentanyl addiction. So much to think about that. So how long does it take for fewer Americans to die from fentanyl? They're literally accusing our ally to the north of having anything to do with fentanyl. And the only way to stop this trade war, other than Trump deciding there's no literally bar that either country of the three countries could meet to automatically stop this. There's no victory. The order would allow for tariffs on Canadian imports of less than $800 too. That's very unusual. Okay, anything under $800 is never usually subject. That's just if you go shopping in Canada. The economic pain caused by this is going to be severe, you guys. Our economies have become intertwined in countless ways, and this is where you're really going to break your brain. Specifically, since Trump signed the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, the USMCA, in 2018, to intertwine our economies more. If you remember, they hated NAFTA, so they threw NAFTA out, and Trump created his own version of NAFTA called the USMCA. He just violated his own trade agreement. He signed it. It was one of his proudest achievements, and he just threw that fucking thing out. And now we have a trade war with our closest allies and economic partners starting Tuesday, with no system in place to stop it when the time comes. So that one's bad. And that's just another day. And finally, a short story that goes into this whole war. I love this headline that JJ's got up right now: the dumbest trade war in history. Yes, this is the dumbest trade war in history. That's from the Wall Street Journal, you guys, who supported Trump. They endorsed Trump, right? This is the dumbest trade war in history, and this is what we're going to face. Now, on domestic side, even a strange one, but one I want to talk about is a battle of DEI. This week it came out as Pete Hegseth took over at DOD, and even as we're recovering and mourning the loss of a U.S. Army Black Hawk, which I was in D.C. when it occurred, and I'm not going to talk about that too much, but they came out with this. And frankly, I want you, if you could look in and read that headline, it literally says that their killing is dead. It's just, so they're actually shutting down. The DOD announced in a discussion press release, it's stopping recognition of all cultural awareness events and periods from now on. I'm not going to read the whole press release, but it goes on to say that DOD will not use any official resources, including man hours, to host celebration or events related to cultural awareness months. That includes National African American Black History Month, Women's History Month, Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Pride, Hispanic Heritage, Disability Employment, on and on and on. Service members of civilians can attend these events in an unofficial capacity outside of duty hours only. This is where it gets really kind of fascist to me. Installations, units, and officers are encouraged to celebrate the valor and success of military heroes of all races, genders, and backgrounds as we restore our warrior culture and ethos. We're proud of our warriors and their history, but we will focus on the character of their service instead of their immutable characteristics. If he went on to say, in their service to the fatherland, it would probably sound more familiar. And if it was in German, you'd definitely recognize what they're saying. This is really disturbing. Even as we look at the loss of service members who've given their lives in service of one of the positive women, they're busy trying to disassemble any recognition of that service. Now, here's where it's really disturbing for me. I joined the Army originally in 1983 when I graduated high school. Of course, we celebrate Black History Month then. This has always been, in my entire military service, we recognize Women's History Month, not all of it, but in the later years especially. This isn't new to Biden. It was never DEI. Black History Month was approved decades ago and is celebrated under every administration. They're using that term DEI to peel back any recognitions of minorities and women, and that should disturb you. It's like you've seen, when they say DEI, they really mean the N-word. So those are kind of I wish I had some good happy news. Hope we'll have a good fun panel at least today, but it's been kind of a rough week for those who follow the news and those who don't. And I kind of want to talk about one of those aspects today with our first guest. One of the big things a lot of us are facing. You guys have heard my story if you watch us regularly. I'm being sued by Mike Flynn for, I don't know, $150 million over a tweet. That is not unusual. There's been threats against the Capitol police officers, there's been threats against the list that Kash Patel wrote of 300 people they're going to target that are opponents to Trump. We've already seen them firing DOJ officials, firing FBI officials who did the January 6th investigations. So it's already begun. So I really want to talk to the guy who is in the middle of a lot of this, my own attorney. Mark Zaid is a renowned attorney based in DC, one of the top whistleblower representatives in the country. He also runs a nonprofit called Whistleblower Aid that helps guide insiders through the process of sounding the alarm without breaking the law themselves. And frankly, Mark Zaid it represented everyone from the intelligent whistleblower who was key to Trump's first impeachment to the brave Capitol police officers you all know from January 6th. And frankly, as I mentioned, to me, in the case of brought by Mike Flynn over a single tweet from 3 years ago. Mark has been targeted by Trump himself. One of his death threats that he got led to a guy going to jail even. So I wanted to welcome Mark Zaid to the show. Let's talk to Mark. I had a chance to talk to him yesterday before the show. Mark, welcome to the show. Mark, man, thanks for coming on. Appreciate seeing you. Always good to see my attorney in a place that doesn't have to do with a lawsuit. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Fred.
I wish it was
notwithstanding the circumstance.
I was going to say, if you heard the news as we came in, there's so many outrageous things happen right out the gate. It's hard to keep up with them. I discussed the story that came out this week that Musk employees have invaded OPM. They've moved in sofa couches, sofa beds. But on top of that, they've sought and possibly gained access to the entire OPM personnel files. Others reporting that in Treasury they've gotten access to our pay files, the entire, government, everybody. I mean, that's me, right? I'm a retired Army officer. I've done contracting for the government in the past. I mean, it's kind of scary. The implications are kind of shocking, aren't they, when you really kind of dig into it, isn't it?
I mean, I think so. Look, there's a reason and a separation between the public sector and the private sector. There is a great, historically, good faith relationship, clearly, because there's mutual interest that exists in so many different sectors. But there are rules about the accessing of information. And, the notion of PII, some of which I think has become a little bit too restricted and ridiculous as far as like I have to communicate with government lawyers all the time, right? And folks in DOD. And, I might not be able to put anything that has an address in it or a social security number at this stage. I mean, I know there's fraud, but it's like so ridiculous with respect to social security numbers, in my personal opinion. But it just is too restricted. But there's a difference, of course, between what we're talking about with a private entity, individual, his companies coming into the U.S. government to have access to systems of records, which are protected by numerous laws and regulations, policies, and directives. It's unheard of. I mean, I'd have to probably go back in history. I mean, we've never had a system of documents like this. Obviously, this is electronic. I have I was given by the National Archives 25 years ago when we did a conference together, a public-private conference for my organization, the James Madison Project. We did a conference on secrecy and declassification, classification coming into the new millennial with the Bush administration in 2000, 2001. And they gave me a beautiful inscribed piece in lucite of red tape. And everybody always hears about breaking through the red tape. Well, this was a real piece of red tape from the Civil War, because that's what the origin of that statement is. It was red tape, red ribbon, basically, that was used to go around the file folders of government files. And you had to cut through the red tape to get to the information. Well, now, obviously, it's all on the computer, so that if you have access to the computer, you have access to, I don't know my math, billions, trillions of terabytes, Googles of terabytes, Googles of Googles. I don't know what they are. It's unheard of. It's inappropriate. And it's very dangerous.
I mean, I grew up in St. Louis. I actually live in St. Louis now. And I grew up, one of my earliest memories is the military records stored here in a place, Crestwood, Missouri, not far from where I grew up. All the military paper records, and if you remember, is this 1975? I think it was. There was
Yeah,
a fire.
68, 70.
70, and it was
Yeah,
70, so I was old enough to remember. And one of the reasons people don't realize this is the reason the fire got out of control is because the government officials didn't want to bring in outsiders. The records were so secure that the firemen were delayed getting into the building, right? And now we've got some asshole who worked for the Boring Company or Twitter or others who simply keying in the keystroke. He's got access to everything those people protected then, and it's and the impact. I mean, think about hacking. Think about doxing. Like we work together. I've been doxed 3 times. You've been doxed. You've had death threats. Hell, a guy went to jail. I mean, who's to say they could just give that to somebody and say, "Hey, here's the asshole's number you want." It's just terrifying.
Look, think about all the direct message conversations that whether you and I or you had with anyone on Twitter,
Yep.
now owned by Musk as X,
Yep.
and what you might have said there that he has access to. I'm waiting for that shoe to drop on a lot of us, where all of a sudden these messages just show up online. And, there's going to be damaging, defamatory, probably really defamatory information about multiple people, evidence of affairs, evidence of all sorts of things that's going to be very personally embarrassing to people. And, if that happens, I'm not even sure there's anything much to be done given the rules, terms of use of X.
I mean, the irony of all of this is they're literally trying to outlaw TikTok because the Chinese government will have access to lots of personal information, and cookies, and they literally just gave the owner of X access to every single one of government employees' benefits, beneficiaries of Social Security, every single, probably in some way, damn near every American in some way, personal information that is far beyond what TikTok's gathering about us. And it just seems, I guess that brings me to the next question. It's just like, nobody's screaming. Where are the screams? I mean, I think what bothers me a lot, and we're going to be talking to Congressman Huffman, who I think very highly of, the how the hair is not on fire everywhere right now. Obviously, this is a Friday news story. I mean, you're in DC. I mean, is there any kind of sense of like panic or dismay? I mean, some of these statements coming out are so wishy-washy, like, well, this is unprecedented. Like, no shit, dude. I mean, I see that frustration out here in the hinterlands. Do you get that in DC?
Yeah, I saw some folks on the news making fun of Senator Schumer because he says people are aroused. It was like, dude, you got to come up with a better word than aroused.
Brother, okay, I think it's more than that, but sure.
We are very much aroused here in DC. I mean, obviously, we're bearing the brunt of a lot of it because of just the size of the federal workforce and the connections that so many of us have to that body. I mean, I've been fielding, and I will be fielding all weekend, emails and texts and phone calls with fired FBI agents and prosecutors and those who are concerned they are about to be on the chopping block. And I will predict they will be on the chopping block because there will be another slew of firings this coming week. I have no doubt about it. And even if it's not this week, it will be the week after because we are going to see a purge. There is no doubt in my mind. Now, the notion of folks responding, what I've been telling people, and I do think this will come true, it's just a matter of when. Even those, what is going to, I'll say, save us with my air quotes, will be the responses by the judiciary and the legislative branch. Yeah. And I think both will generally come around. Not everybody, clearly, but some will. And I think it will be some on the Republican side. Republican appointed judges, Republican elected members of Congress. Because even for those who have voted for Trump, whether they're MAGA or not, but especially the non-MAGA supporters of Trump, so much of what he is doing, even though he promised it, and we've been saying this for months, like, why would you not listen to him? Right? When I was interviewed in December and January from people and by the media, and I'm telling people, here's my concerns. What do you think you should do? And they're like, well, why do you feel that way? I'm like, he said he's going to do this.
Right.
He said exactly what he was going to do. Why would I not believe him just because he lies about a lot of stuff? But this is different, and he's been doing it. So what I think is going to happen is what we've already started to see, which is implementation of policies and acts that he does all of a sudden starts to impact his supporters who did not plan or expect that to happen. We've seen, for example, some diehard MAGAs who have gone online saying, I don't understand it. Why is my spouse being deported? Yeah, they're a loving Christian member of the community. Well, yeah, they're here illegally, just like the ones who committed felonies elsewhere who should also be deported. Or the farm workers that aren't going to be able to, or the farms that aren't going to be able to work because their farm workers have been deported. Or wait till the tariffs on Canada and Mexico and China go into place, and we really see what the price of eggs or bananas or guacamoles or other things that happen. A lot of people just don't realize that what sounds good by a policy, destroy DEI, which maybe there's some merit to some of it because maybe it went too far. It probably did in the Biden administration, but destroying it, firing the workers who were in those positions, who have been in those agencies for 15, 20 years, and this was just their assignment at that time, and just getting rid of that level of experience and having nobody to hire to go in with as a replacement, you're going to start seeing, right, checks being delayed for Social Security if it still exists, or Medicaid or Medicare, or any services you need with your taxes, that because there's nobody there to do the work. It is going to be a nightmare, but I think the destruction or the destructive nature of what he's doing will ultimately almost prove to be his own downfall as people respond in opposition. But what I can't predict, as much as I can, I think predict that, I can't predict when that will be.
Yeah, and that's the question. I mean, I interviewed Sky Perryman from Democracy Forward this week for the main podcast, and they've seen some success. Obviously, they've sued against Doge. They did sue against the OPM member. You've represented a lot of those folks. I mean, what are you telling them? I mean, you represent whistleblowers. You've got, I mean, what are you telling folks like, hey, you're inside the government? Because there's also danger right now. I think it's even much more dangerous now to be a whistleblower than ever before. I mean, what are you telling folks who like, how can I help? What can I do? I'm inside the government. I'm scared. What do you tell people like that?
Yeah. So the first thing I'm telling people right now is make sure you take your unclassified performance appraisals and anything you can within your personnel file to have it, your awards, achievements, certificates. We are concerned, and there has been rumors about it, that the systems are going to get locked out, that even evaluations are going to be changed. I'm not sure where the origin of that story, quite frankly, is coming from. But I can tell you, having represented many federal employees, hundreds and hundreds, if not more, over the years, thousands probably by this time, that sometimes what should be a simple thing of merely, can I have my performance appraisal, is really difficult to do when that person is suspended or having been fired outside of the government. So take it now. I also see, even if you might not be on the chopping block at the moment, go to your office and grab all your important personal items off your desk. Because when I've had clients walked out, and takes us 2-3 years to sometimes, in good times, right, to get my coffee mug, to get the photo of my kids off of my desk or my cubicle, do all that so that you are prepared to at least minimize the personal sort of harm that might come to that individual. There's not a lot, unfortunately, to prepare otherwise for what's coming. What we are doing, and there are a number of us, there's dozens and dozens of lawyers, many of whom were inside the government at one point, unlike me, but I've been doing it for 30 years, who are banding together to coordinate representation of all these different individuals. And we are doing it, at least I am, and I think most of them are, pro bono. So, for example, I have a nonprofit called Whistleblower Aid. I advise and recommend, please, everybody go check it out. And we represented the national security, the intelligence community whistleblower in the first Trump impeachment, the Facebook whistleblower, the Twitter whistleblower, the most senior whistleblower in modern history at DHS was our client. J6 whistleblowers, I represented police officers from Capitol Police and others in the Army, etc. And we will be providing pro bono representation as well. The problem, as I wrote with my colleague Andrew Buckeye in the New York Times the other day about the IGs, the inspector generals being fired, the system that we used in the first Trump administration very successfully, quite frankly, in that we protected the client, the whistleblower, protected their identity, ensured the information got where it needed to go so that the responsible oversight authorities could then do what they would ever do. That's not our choice. That's theirs. That's what we're supposed to do for the whistleblowers. And it worked. I don't know, given he's firing the IGs, many of whom he appointed in his first administration, to replace them with loyalists who would ensure that no one would investigate him or his political appointees or confirmed individuals or just people who were placed in those positions. We will still work through the system as much as possible. We ensure our whistleblower clients are lawful. This is no Ed Snowden. This is no Chelsea Manning, who I've represented actually because she did the right thing, the proper way, to have her last book, cleared to ensure no classified information was in it. But so we will do whatever we can to protect the whistleblowers. We certainly encourage people to come forward. I really want to encourage people to stay inside the government to do what you can.
That's what I was going to say.
But it's going to be difficult. There are going to be lines. When I talk to friends of mine who are inside, they all have in their mind where that line is.
Yep.
Where I will stay until this, but if he does this, if I'm told to do that, I'm eligible for retirement. I'm leaving, and that will be a loss to the American people. But you can't blame them.
Yeah, and I've said the same thing. Just stay. Don't take the early buyout because it's not actually a buyout. Don't let them intimidate you. They're trying to scare people into quitting before they come for you. But I have so many friends, especially as disabled veterans are all we're now DEI, right? It is shocking to me, the lies. But that's what I've been saying too, is just stay as long as you can. And then, by the way, figure out how you're going to talk, use Signal if you can, just be secure. Don't trust. I mean, I'm already seeing the rumors they can't trust our computers anymore. I guess a rumor went out or a memo went out somewhere saying Teams is being monitored now. So if they're using Teams, it's just, this is insane that we're in the United States of America. And these are the conversations we're having about our own conversations. Again, I go back to TikTok. I mean, look, where's Josh Hawley now? I mean, that's the fucking ultimate irony, isn't it? Josh Hawley's been having a fucking meltdown for 4 or 5 years now about TikTok, and I'm not hearing a damn peep out of him about the fact that Elon Musk and his former employees are raiding the same systems with 10 times the amount of information available to them to misuse and possibly leak. I know we've gone long. That's more editorial than question. So how can people find out more? I will put up the Whistleblower Aid link on here. How can they reach out to you and your team? And how can they help? Even though we're over time, I always ask that question to every guest. I get asked every day, how can the average American help?
So there's a few ways. The first way, which is frankly the most obvious, is financially.
Yes.
Whistleblower Aid is a 501c3. My law firm, I'm a private law firm. Yeah, I work off a profit. I'm in a business, but I'm representing all of these police officers, all of these FBI agents, all of these fired prosecutors. I'm representing them for free. That means for you. I'm representing you.
This guy.
Right? People who were targeted through lawfare, which is the true definition of lawfare, which is basically baseless lawsuits filed against people in order to stifle their criticism. But that means for free for the client, because people like you, people like the FBI agents who worked on the January 6th prosecutions, the classified documents case, I don't want them to incur any fees. Nothing worse than they've already be about to or are suffering.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm sorry, folks. I have a mortgage to pay. I have college tuition to pay. I have cat food and dog food to buy. So I still need to be able to survive. So anything, and I want people to get the tax benefit. So you give it through the nonprofits, of which there are multiple, and I can guide people. People can email me. If you go to my website, or you just mark@markzaid.com, the website's just markzaid.com. It's really easy to reach out to me, and I can point you in a direction so you can get financial tax benefit, assuming any of that still exists in the near future.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
because that will help allow us as lawyers to be able to provide pro bono representation. And as I've told many of my colleagues, this is not a situation for us as the lawyers to get rich. That is not what this is about. It is just to ensure that we can survive in our own world while we take care of everybody else. The other thing is, any support, just even positive messaging really helps. I mean, I do receive positive emails, posts on X, on Blue Sky, and that means a lot. It really does. It's really encouraging, because I'll tell you, more of what we get is the hate mail, as I'm sure you know, and it's always misspelled, right? And grammatically incorrect.
I love it.
But nonetheless, when you get an email that says they're going to bleed you like a pig, it's not comfortable. And you're a dirty Jew, and things like that. It's not a comfortable message to receive. So something positive, even just saying we really appreciate what you're doing, really goes a long way. And then at some point in time, I was watching the news earlier today. They were talking about what happened in Hungary in the last few years with Viktor Orban, the notion of how the easiest way to become authoritarian is to actually use the democratic principles and laws that exist in the society. And that what made a big difference in like 2017 was people going to the streets. Now, frankly, I'm not a marcher. I mean, I feel I'm more effective if I can go to court. I can go to same. Yeah. If I can go to court and do something, but we're going to have to start having to see some massive protests in the streets, especially to rile up the members of Congress, even and especially on the Republican side, to step up and say, hey, King Donald, you have no clothes on, and this is where it ends.
I think that's coming. We were just talking about there's a movement for a general strike even that's being led by several groups. So I think that moment's fast approaching. Well, Mark, I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy as hell. Thanks for taking time for us to come on, and thanks for what you do for me. God knows I sleep better at night knowing I've got representation that's got my back. So I appreciate it, brother.
It's an honor and privilege, my friend, for your service to our country and for the service you're doing now.
Thanks. I appreciate it. All right. See you soon.
You got it.
It's fun talking to your lawyer in a pleasant environment as opposed to talk about Mike Flynn, but a lot of real wisdom there, you guys. A lot of wisdom, the idea of staying in the fight. We're going to have to do that. There's going to be so much change. And I know there's a lot of angst, especially among my veteran friends and especially my federal employee friends. I know you've seen it, you guys. I really do think we just have to kind of back them up and encourage them to hang in there. Look, I've always been a believer in make them carry you out of the building. It's just like Tim Snyder says, don't obey in advance. And you guys know, I say, don't believe them in advance. They want to scare you into submission. So that's great. That was Mark. Hey, look, shifting gears, thankfully shifting gears from an insane week. I really just wanted to have a great conversation. The heart of this broadcast each week is it's not just the current news. It's also great people doing great things and people you should know more about. And this week's panel is absolutely 100% that. You definitely know our panels this week. Kirk Acevedo and Kiersten Warren have appeared in dozens of your favorite shows, movies, episodes of your favorite shows for decades. Kirk broke into the scene. Incredible roles. Alvarez in The Wire. From there, he went to The Thin Red Line. Of course, my favorite, Sergeant Joe Toy and Band of Brothers. His work continues today, starring the second season of Lioness, where you may have seen him getting his ass kicked. And of course, Kiersten Warren's had an equally fascinating career spanning from Desperate Housewives, Saved by the Bell to college years. Of course, I'll never forget her as the starry-eyed first victim of Independence Day and much more. She and Kirk have been married for, I think, 20 years now. So Kirk and Kiersten, welcome to the show. They're together.
Yay! Thanks for having
Woo!
us. Yeah, 20 years this April.
Yes.
Amazing. That's
Yes.
pretty good. I'll text them. I'll
Thank
mark
you.
it down.
I never know dates.
You know what,
No,
though?
you
We
don't.
never, either of us know, because we got married in Vegas in Chrome Hearts t-shirts, and we always said, oh, we'll redo it. So that date really wasn't sacrosanct. So every year, no matter who gets mad at the other one, we're both wrong. I have to pull out the actual, marriage license to verify the date. We don't.
That's
But
why
we're
God
very
made
married.
you guys need to be using Google Calendar better. You're not using so I tell you, look, I'm so excited to have you join. I know it's been a crazy few weeks where you are in LA. I know the fires were there, and I know you guys avoided that. Did that affect you guys at all, or I think you ducked it, didn't you?
No, we ducked it. Hey, quick question. Well, I'm getting an echo. Is there a
I'm getting a
way
little
I
echo
could,
too. JJ, we had an echo. Is there a way to fix that? JJ's going to look at it right now.
not
He's
on
on
your
it.
end, on our end, every time
JJ's on. It's on my end too. JJ's all over it, probably because
at one point we were surrounded on three sides, but the fires never came close. No.
that's good. Yeah. Did you lose your friends lose houses and homes?
Yes, I think our number is six friends and associates, people we've worked with over the
Yeah.
years, lost absolutely everything. A friend of our daughter's is staying with us. Her house is, condemned from smoke, and they're not allowed to go back. And her parents are now moving back to Georgia, and she's here, so we need to help find her place. Like, it's just a lot of scrambling on the ground and relying on, people you care about.
Yeah, I had one daughter 2 weeks ago. Now I have two.
They do multiply like that. It's it's a crazy kind of life there. I know. Now you guys have, like I said, you've made the Hollywood life. I think you've got generation. I think you've got a daughter now in the business too, don't you?
Yes, yes, she did her first horror movie, a lead in a horror movie that comes out sometime this year, and went with her to Atlanta while she filmed that, because the rest of the cast was about 25 and she was 19, and they were all supposed to be friends, and mom just said no. So I went along
Wow.
and ruined every plan anybody ever had, but we had a great time.
Well, that's what matters the most, I think. It'd be fascinating though. I mean, it's exciting for you guys. I mean, you guys have had such amazing careers. I mean, and you've been in and out of military role. We'll talk about the panel picks, as a matter of fact. But I definitely want to just kind of talk to you guys a little bit. I mean, you've journey. It's an unusual. I mean, life in Hollywood as a couple is not challenging. 20 years of life in Hollywood as a couple has got to be challenges. I'm sure you've had your bumps and downs. Any secrets to success?
What's funny is that when you work and you're away, what's that phrase?
Absence makes the heart go wonder.
Correct. So it's like you get these little mini vacation breaks, and you're so excited to see your significant other after a month or two or three. But
Yep.
she flies out to
It's
vacation
like
and stuff.
mini honeymoons in different cities. When I went to Budapest to see him on 12 Monkeys, that was so much fun. We do better in a lifestyle like that than just sitting at home looking at each other 24/7. Like, is that the phone bill? That's harder for us. Really.
I get it. I was just talking to my fiance. We've been sitting back because I had this back surgery in December, so we've been home together for 6-7 weeks now, and we're both like, when do you start traveling again? No reason. It's just nice to have the break. I get it. Let's go ahead and because we got a great set of panel picks. So Kiersten, I don't think that Kirk warned you, and that's fine. But what we do on the panels is we throw out what's called panel picks, and there's 4 topics, and each person gets a chance to pick the one. They'll be familiar to you. Don't worry. I'm not going to surprise you. JJ, can you bring up the panel picks, and maybe you guys can see them? I know you're on your phone because the technology is awesome. Uh-oh, we're having... Oh, no. JJ once again has lost his way. So this is a running joke, you guys, on the show, that we all beat up JJ, and he doesn't deserve it. JJ, okay, he would tell you he does deserve it, but that's okay. We're all fans of JJ, and since we all do this for free, it's that way. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the panel picks: Fancy Cats, Mildly Desperate Housewives, Gangster versus Soldier, and Bronx, Iowa, LA. And so you can kind of guess what those are about. Kiersten, ladies first. Go ahead and grab yourself one.
Yeah, the fancy cat, of course.
Say again.
Fancy cat.
Fancy cats. So for those who don't follow Kiersten and Kirk on social media, first of all, you need to. We'll put their social media handles up. But they have. Tell us about your fancy cat.
Okay, we during the pandemic, our then 10th grader had an absolute breakdown. You can't see your friends anymore. You can't go to class anymore. This is your house. You're not leaving. And she had a terrible night, and I was really worried. Kirk was really sweet with her, stayed in there till she fell asleep. And he came out and looked at me and said, "We need a family project, maybe a kitten." Now, every project, every rescue was shut down because of you couldn't find it anywhere. We found one.
Definitely not phrasing I would say. We
What?
need a family project.
Somebody
said, we need a motherfucking cat.
All right. We have a different vernacular, but
yeah.
we got. So he found this kitten at a price, and we had to drive out there.
Yeah.
And it was a little worrisome because we were like, this is all that we could get out from an ATM. Can you wait? Or do you? And they said, no. And we're like, what? So then he
we
was
didn't
worried.
know if it was a setup or something like that. You're driving it out an hour away. You know, I had to, bring some protection along.
It was really
just in
scary.
case.
So he's walking in, and he literally tells me, if you hear gunfire, just drive away.
Good advice,
I'm
man.
so nervous. I don't even know where we were. Yeah. And then I see the door open after a couple minutes, and I hear meow, like this tiny little Bengal kitten, and we fell over tea kettle in love with this kitten, and she really did become the savior of those early pandemic days. Everything turned towards focus on. We named her Ripley because of the alien, of the Sigourney Weaver character in Alien, who taught us that even during times of great war, one needs something small to love. And that's why we named her Ripley. And she's lived up to her name ever since. Love her.
And she's gorgeous. I mean, she's just a beautiful Bengal cat. I mean, very rare. And you got her off the street.
Huge attitude. Just the most. She's not scared of anything, which we had to get because we have a really issuey rescue dog who wouldn't attack any small kitten that would just scratch it. Oh. So we had to be very careful, but she just was never scared of him when she was this big. She would just look at him. She's not.
Well, she's a gorgeous cat, and I love following her for no reason other than that. You guys are fine, but Ripley.
We get that a lot. No, you're
I do too. People are actually the puppy than me, and that's fine. I'm not angry about that in any way. It's life as we know it as adults and parents. All right, bring it back, JJ, if you can. He's on it. There we go. All right, my brother, it's your turn, Kirk.
I'll do Bronx, Iowa, LA.
That's a dual question. I mean, you're not exactly a kid off the street per se. You went to school for acting. You didn't just learn act. I mean, you ended up playing on the streets, but I mean, your trip from the Bronx to Hollywood's fascinating. Yeah. So those who don't know, Kirk and I actually worked together on a project back during the last election. We're not going to talk politics today because enough is enough. But I got to know him and I got to know his journey and his family. You've got family in the military, but it's a long way from Bronx to the hills of LA, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the South Bronx during the 70s and went to junior high school performing arts, then high school performing arts, and a 4-year conservatory at SUNY Purchase. So, and then was working, did theater, blah, 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 then did a little pilot called Paradise and met this little lady. And she lived in Los Angeles. So she trapped me. She kidnapped me and brought me 3,000 miles
I taught
away.
him how to drive. I taught him how to swim. I think somewhere there's a certificate beyond the marriage certificate that says I own him.
I feel like I'm a case of Munchausen syndrome here or something, like kidnapped him. No, but in New York you don't drive; you take the subways or a cab. And so at 33 years old, I didn't I knew how to drive. I just never drove. Didn't have a license.
It's interesting he should say that in Munchausen. That's the way I feel when I'm cheering for the Knicks. I'm like, wait, what? I don't care.
Well, that's the thing.
But I do
You're a girl
now.
from Iowa, and you
Yeah.
had the most. Your career is so fascinating, Kiersten, and probably people won't talk about it, but yeah, I think you started off in Iowa, right? But you ended up in Hawaii at one point, I believe.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, your
really
career,
didn't
your
ever
path to
live
Hollywood's
in
kind of weird
Iowa.
too.
No,
You
I was
didn't?
just born in Iowa and then
Born in
went to
Iowa.
Hawaii with my parents who were Baptist missionaries to Hawaii. So, I mean, if God has to call you anywhere, let it be Hawaii. Yeah. So I went from there to working for Japanese clients, doing commercials in Hawaii, and saved up my money to move to Los Angeles. I had a daughter very young, like high school young. So I
Yeah.
had to not share a house with actress waitresses. I had to have my own money and be a little more solid. So it took longer to get here. I was in my mid-20s playing a teenager, but with a 7-year-old. So
Yeah, I mean, you played
yeah,
very
no
young roles out
stress
the gate.
there. But
Yeah, yeah, nothing like acting, and then also raising a toddler and child and 7-year-old. I mean, it's a remarkable life.
yeah, when
But I
I
mean,
was doing Saved by the Bell, I had, this child like running around and taking food from the producer's kitchen, while we were filming. It was hilarious.
that's a tech. I mean, why not? Free food, you can't beat the
Yeah,
deal. I mean,
had the
but what
best
a life
side
for a
too.
kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but what a life for a kid to grow up, watching all this unfold. I mean, how do you keep those kids grounded in all of this? I mean, it's got to be hard.
Well, as a working actor, you're not a star, so it's easy to keep them grounded when you're still poor. It's like that's really no brainer. We still had, issues paying for her private school. It was a nice school, but it's like it was really difficult. I was living off of residual checks. I was single. There was no living real large, but there was access, which I think people misunderstand about working actors. You're still just working really hard to live and survive. You have access to all these luminaries, and people get you confused with the luminaries and their
Yeah.
very disparate realities.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm glad we touched on that because it is, I hear that so often from so many of my friends. I've had the privilege to work with a lot of your peers because of my work in politics and otherwise. And you're right. I hear that story all of it. We're just regular people trying to make ends meet, for the most part. You hear the big ones, but obviously your average, just we're working stiffs like everybody else, trying to raise kids and trying to make an expensive life in LA work,
Very expensive and to stay safe, And
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember early on. I mean, I was single, curly hair on comedy on NBC, and this was right, not so long after the Rebecca Schaefer tragedy. She was killed, and she had so they were saying, "Are you safe? Are you in a safe building?" And it's very frightening to be single, alone, in Los Angeles, and trying to make, so.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. Well, that's great. All right, bring it back up, JJ. And we are still having a little auto. We apologize, everybody. We're our guests are on speakers. We had a journey trying to get them on camera, so we're just proud to be on camera together. So bear with it. So I think it could be the speaker on your phone or so. We'll make it work. All right. I think we're back to you, Kiersten.
I I think I have to go with Mildly Desperate Housewife.
Mildly Desperate Housewife. Of course, we had to talk about Desperate Housewives. You had your
Hilarious.
iconic role. Your icon, your iconic role. Look, I watched it. I admit it. It's funny. Last week we had Dora Madison, who was on Friday Night Lights. The week before that, we had one of the stars of High School Musical. Sadly, I've watched all of these shows. I'm sure I'm ruining my alpha male status. But so Kirk's the tough guy. Like if you guys know Kirk, his handle on Twitter is Kid Vicious, and and he played a gangsters and soldiers. He's a tough guy. And then I'm like, oh my god, Desperate Housewives. I want to talk to Kiersten. But I admit it, I'm a male, I'm a soldier. But I mean, what an experience that must have been. And you had your role, like you said. To this day, Kiersten, I see clips coming up of your appearances in the show.
Nora,
Was that?
so many people wanted, I mean, she caused so much trouble. I caused so much trouble. Um, Very first rule of my acting teacher, Harry Master, told you never separate when you're talking about character. It's me,
Yep.
so many people wanted to see me die. It was the highest rated episode in the whole history of the series, I think, except maybe the pilot when Nora died. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, exactly.
Wasn't it originally
Oh yeah, the only
Laura
reason I
Dern?
got it was because I had heard that Laura Dern turned it down. So God bless Laura Dern for being busy and uninterested or whatever, you know.
And it's a tough, I mean, it's got to be a weird role to take, the other women and all that trouble she caused. I mean, do you look
No,
at
no,
roles
no. I
like
had a
that?
blast. It was so much fun. I far preferred to be this instigatrix, you know, to come in daily. It was just, you got to be the aggressor, and it was so much fun. I had a blast.
And
And I
then
know, go
oh,
ahead.
good. No, go ahead.
You're saying Kirk. I mean, I've gotten to know you well enough, at least distantly through Kirk and through social media well enough. It's not who you are. You're like one of the world's sweetest people. I'm not going to speak for Kirk. He doesn't count in this one. But, that's what's so funny. I guess why I wanted to specifically talk about that one in your other roles is it really is a dichotomy from who you are as a person, I think.
Well, it's so much fun. I mean, I think I'm a character actor. Maybe that's what we have in common. I think we're both kind of character actors. And one of the nicest compliments I ever got was a director. I don't even know from what show, but it's tough. And he said that I have this capacity to go from fragile to ferocious, like lickety split. I like it. And that is the way that I love roles like that because it's so much fun. I mean, how boring to just carry a bag of groceries in a cashmere twin set and do someone's wife. I mean, I so much prefer this world.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, I love it. Kirk, you're going to say something. I cut you off. I mean, you live on the inside of this whole thing.
No. My wife comes home one day from Desperate Housewives,
Oh
and she's
God, I
like,
know what he's
"You
gonna
have to
say.
come to a reading." I was like, "I'm not going to no damn reading of Desperate Housewives." And she's like, "Oh, Mark Cherry is a huge fan of Austin."
I was ordered to bring her to our table reading, and I had to like present him like, who he
Like
is.
literally, like I was like a pretty napkin, like just watching these women read, and I'm literally in my mind, I'm like, "What the fuck am I doing here?" Like I'm like a serial killer, like
It
amongst
was.
these,
It was. It was the classic shark on a tricycle. That.
very, very, very odd.
Yeah.
And then every time one of the housewives came in to the room, Mark Cherry would be like, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Kurt." They're like, "Who the fuck is
Yeah.
that?"
I think we saw 16 eye rolls from the women, and then
And
Mark Cherry was like,
the whole time I'm like, "Please get me out of this room." I'm like waiting for like a break or something to just disappear. It was just very uncomfortable.
But something funny about having a coupledom where you have stuff that randomly comes up on TV. I mean, I will literally beg him to not watch something, and he doesn't like
Oh, I don't watch
watching. We
anything.
don't like watching ourselves. It's very, very strange. But that last episode that I thought, oh, this is really good work of mine. Kirk is going to be so impressed. So we're laying there, and he's so quiet. And I'm thinking, he's really going to, babe, that's just awesome. He's He just fell
Sound
asleep
asleep.
during my big scene. And I don't think he's seen it to this day.
Listen, don't feel bad. I fall asleep through my stuff too, so
It's all
nothing
about
personal.
focus, I guess. Oh my God, that's great. Well, thank you so much. That's great. All right, last one. I think you'll get this one, Kirk.
Sure, gangster versus soldier.
I think that's yours. Yeah. Well, you've had such a unique career. You have played a lot of kind of tough roles. Your latest role, Linus, of course. You're an
Yeah.
agent who gets captured. I mean, you've had some really tough role. I mean, I guess the question would be, I think I know you well enough by now personally to say I know which one you're going to pick. But you started off playing a really tough. Alvarez is a tough character. It kind of it threw you on the people's TV screens. I saw you as Sergeant Joe Toy, and I think I've told you. I think the first time we met, I kind of fangirled really bad. People are accusing me in the comments, by the way, of fangirling, and I am, and I don't care what you think, whatever. But I Band of Brothers, especially the time when Band of Brothers came out. So, oh, there's the bumper. When Band of Brothers came out, right around 9/11, that year of that whole year. I remember watching Band of Brothers with my own daughter and sons. I was a soldier in the 101st. It's interesting that show came out right before 9/11, and my then ex-wife, my now ex-wife, was a flight attendant, and I got assigned to the 101st Airborne. I done a tour of the 101st the first time. I got assigned to the 101st after 9/11, and we would all wear the 101st badges, and everybody knew it. because of Band of Brothers. Hunter first, Screaming Eagles, and that was a key role for you. But I mean, did you prefer the gangster role versus that soldier role? Because you played a lot of soldiers.
As an actor, I mean, for me, and I'll probably will say the majority of actors would prefer to play the bad guy because you don't have to apologize. You could go to places that you can't go playing the hero. You there's you don't have to apologize for your behavior on set if you're a little method. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's a Methodist.
I'm a
uh,
Baptist.
but it's just more fun finding the nuance because it's not just playing a bad guy. It's why am I bad? And this is the reason why I'm bad. And finding those nuanced moments to maybe there's a little lightness here. And it's like, oh, that's an interesting way to play it. Because someone isn't bad because they're bad. There's a reason something happened to them and their origin story, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a reason. So I prefer the bad guy. There's way more places to go than there's the anti-hero. So, whereas playing a good guy is very vanilla. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we're a
I've been
couple.
seeing.
We're just a couple of baddies.
Yes, that's clear from your public personas. You're both very bad. From my interactions with you over the years, you're just total badasses. But and there's a lot of. I mean, you've done some really cool stuff lately too. I mean, the Linus. Are you real? It must be just wonderful working with Linus. I mean, it's such an incredible cast. Are you enjoying this gig? I mean, it's a remarkable show.
Well, it's so funny. I've been on Taylor Sheridan's Purview for a while. I've auditioned for a few of the shows and have been very close to a few of the shows of locking it down. And then I got this offer, and I mean, listen, you get to work with Zoe Saldana, Nicole Kidman, I mean, Morgan Freeman, yeah, the voice of God, Michael Kelly, my buddy I worked with on Invincible and Fringe, and uh, so listen, when you're working with talented people, life is easy. I just have to react. I mean, people don't realize that. Like, it's just it's life is so much easier, especially if you're not intimidated, right? So,
Right.
but
Wow.
the writing is amazing. Just the production, the actors' production value. I worked in Texas for the first time. Actually, love Texas. Uh,
Yep.
all the liberals are like, "Fuck you! You're supposed to." But no, I love Texas.
No, he did.
It
He
has
sends
its
me
merits.
properties. He sends me real estate listings in Texas
Yeah.
all the time compared to what you get in Los Angeles. It's a
Listen, there's
little.
nothing like someone saying good morning, good afternoon with a smile. I grew up in New York. We don't smile. We don't say good morning. We're like, hey, fuck you. But you know what I mean? That's the attitude.
No, I know.
There's something nice and sweet and Americana by saying good afternoon, holding the
Yep.
door open for you. I mean, like, chivalry isn't dead in some places, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, or I mean, there's people that do it in New York and East Coast. You just don't see it as much.
And he got a
Yeah.
cowboy hat that he still wears that he loves. That he wears it
I
every
saw that at
day.
Christmas. I saw that in the Christmas present. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and it was funny. A friend of mine came to visit. They were here for a conference. All the government, but back in the day they had government conferences. The government conference would be here in St. Louis because it's like neutral. And I remember we met for dinner, and she was like, what the hell is up with all these people like saying hi and being nice and welcoming you? I'm like, Midwest nice. I don't know what to tell you. It's like it's who we are. I don't. I'm sorry about that, but it's a very different lifestyle out here in these hinterlands, and I'm sure. So, well, that's amazing. And people can still see. I mean, I think the season just wrapped, right? So all the episodes are available on Linus right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
It's
it.
a lot of twists. You'll enjoy it. It's
I can't. I know I'm not caught up. It's funny when I was getting ready for the show, and you may remember my son Hunter. He was with me when we worked together 4 years ago, and Hunter is a fan, of course. And Hunter said he wanted me to tell you he just rewatched Fringe again, and your journey on Fringe is crazy. For those who haven't watched Fringe, how many times? I think you died. How many times did you die? I think you died. I think you went 3 times.
yeah, a few times. That was a hard show. Just for the record, that was a hard show. It's like the first season. Like I was on the phone, like by a desk, by a computer, and I remember telling the showrunner producer, I was like, I'm just going to throw this out there. If we were to go to war, would you have me answering the phones? Or would you have me? So the parable, the analogy would be, I'm a shark riding a tricycle. Like, let me
That's it.
do what I do. So a lot of times, and this is, you get cast for things
Yeah.
that you're actually not right for. So sometimes these things happen, and it's no one's fault. The actor wants the job,
Right.
but you want a job where you could shine, do what
Yeah.
you really do, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, that was a gig that maybe I was miscast.
Yeah. Well, it's still great. People are all tossing in the comments we saw, and people talking about 12 Monkeys. I mean, you've had some iconic roles. Kiersten, what are you doing these days? Keep track of Ripley, keeping him out of trouble? I mean, you got any
Yeah,
projects
running
working
the
or taking a break?
farm. Yeah, I'm writing right now, focused on doing a lot of writing. Have gotten back in touch with my old agent of every job that I ever liked. I just kind of stepped away. We raised our daughter, and she seems to be doing well and thriving. So when she was in Atlanta, I talked to him and I said, "Yeah, I want to go back out and do this again." So I just started auditioning again, and here I am.
I love it. Well, we can't wait to see you again. Did you say, Kirk?
I went into a room for the first time for an audition since 2019.
They're seeing people like in person. How crazy is that? It's been so awful to not get to see the decision makers.
So bizarre
It's
to go into a
awful.
room and see 20 actors, and I was like, oh, this is so bizarre. It felt like a lifetime ago.
Well, that's good news. It's good news for everybody. Good news for the business and the industry, too. Good news for you
Yeah.
guys. Well, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate overcoming the hurdles to get on the show in the first place, and B, joining us with your dog. I just love you guys. I'm a big fan, obviously, and the things you guys do. Keep up doing what you're great. Thanks for being so friendly and joining us today. So, if you need anything, Linus is out there. Kiersten, we're looking for your writing. Follow them on social media. It's really easy to find them on social media. It's Kirk Acevedo and Kiersten Warren. So easy to hunt you guys down and just appreciate your time. You guys have a great rest of your day. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, you guys are our first couple to officially join. Now, we had another couple lined up. We had Chris Titus, the comedian, and his wife, Rachel. They're going to join. Titus almost slept through the show, because he lives in LA like you guys do. And when he got up, he told Rachel, his wife, says, "Rachel, we got to get up. We got the show." And she's like, and I quote, "What fucking Nazi has a show at 8 a.m.?" And he said, and he said, Fred Wellman. She goes, "Fuck Fred," and stayed in bed. So Kiersten, kudos to you for getting up at 8 a.m. in LA to join us live. And
I'm up at 5 a.m. every day.
I knew that.
I'm up early. Yeah.
We sleep like newborns. We're
Yeah.
down about 9:30, and we're up in about 5. So
Yeah.
we're
Same.
early morning.
Same. Heather's in the comments today too. Heather gets me to bed at like 9:10. I'm like, oh, this is weird. But we're up at 6. And like, all right, I guess I'm a morning person now. God help me. I guess. Well, thanks, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Appreciate you, brother.
Just a joy. See you soon, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Man, yeah, I love those guys. I just do. That was a lot of fun having them, and I hope you guys enjoyed. This is the pleasure of this show. We joke all the time. Why do you do the show? Well, I want to talk to cool people like Kirk and Kiersten. In addition, now shifting back a little bit. We got to go back to talking about what's going on in the world. Unfortunately, that was a great break. We had a chance. So I'm going to frame this for you guys so you understand. The show is live, but because of scheduling conflicts during the week as we're booking guests, sometimes we have to pre-record them, and it's only happened a few times. This week, obviously, with everything going on in Washington, we had to pre-record with Congressman Jared Huffman of California. And the news cycle is the news cycle. So we actually talked to Jared Friday, very late Friday. A couple of things have happened since, but we'll frame it that way. But Jared and I talked. Congressman Huffman, of course, represents Northern California. He is his district, second congressional district, spans the north coast of the state from the Golden Gate Bridge all the way to the Oregon border and almost the entire coastline. He was first elected to Congress in November 2012. Importantly, he currently sits on the Natural Resources and the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, which are kind of key committees all of a sudden in light of what's happening with the Trump administration and their appointees. I had Jared on back on the original show on Democracy with FPWellman that you can see here and on the Midas Touch Network. And we talked back in June about Project 2025. Jared was Congressman Huffman was leading a Project 2025 task force to highlight what's in there and prepare for it. And a lot's happened since then. And I frame this in the sense of, while we were ready for Project 2025, a lot of different things have happened. And for that conversation, we add to that. So right now, I want to welcome Congressman Jared Huffman to the show. Congressman Huffman, welcome to the show. It's so good to see you again, sir.
Great to be back, Fred. Thanks.
I haven't seen you. I think you and I spoke in June on the On Democracy podcast, talking about, of all things, Project 2025, and here we are. And this has been a crazy 2 weeks. How much of Project 2025 footprint do you see in this flood of EOs and memos? Are you seeing the lines that you predicted?
Absolutely. Yeah, we were doing our best over the summer, Fred, to warn the country about Project 2025, make sure that they didn't believe Trump's lies, that he had nothing to do with it, that it wasn't really his agenda. And I'm not really interested in saying I told you so. I'm interested in stopping it, but clearly we were right. This is rolling out exactly as they had laid out in Project 2025, probably plus some steroids, because in some ways it's even more extreme and faster than what I had imagined.
I think one of the twists I've seen, and you really hit on it there, is the Musk twist. I think when you and I spoke in June, Elon Musk wasn't really a part of things as much as he is now. And we're seeing all these Musk acolytes. I mean, I think there was a story about how OPM has a kid right out of high school, for God's sake, a 21-year-old who all worked for Musk at some point, really tinkering with things. I think that's a twist I didn't see coming. I don't know if you saw it coming.
No, there's so many layers to that. And, Musk is somehow getting inside the Treasury Department and finding out the way we move trillions of dollars, and unlike anything we've ever seen. Security clearances are waived for all of these people. We're in a brave new world.
A dangerous new world, wouldn't you say? I mean, you've been in office for a while. You've seen how government's supposed to run, and you even saw. I think you saw Trump 1.0 even in your office then. I mean, this is substantially different and aggressive. And for me, as this old soldier, I find it incredibly dangerous. I mean, these are people who have probably no business being in government, would never get a security clearance, would they?
Of course not. I mean, our current defense secretary would never get a security clearance if it were a good one.
There's that. Yeah, that's true. I mean, what a crazy time. Now, with having said that, this week, I think Friday, we found out Trump's talking about putting tariffs against our allies, 25% on Canada, 25% on Mexico, 10% on China. I mean, I guess they're not as tough on China as we thought they were. Obviously, that's going to affect. I mean, California sits right between both of our trading partners. It's the fourth largest economy or fifth largest economy in the world. These are your trading partners, your state. I mean, tariffs like that, willy-nilly, are going to have devastating effects on your state and the country, aren't they?
Yeah, to have this happening after an election where people's cost of living, cost of bread and groceries and housing and everything else was probably the big driver, thinking they were going to get relief from Donald Trump. It's a rude awakening that is about to befall them as these tariffs roll out.
Yeah, and if they do go into effect, obviously we're going to see massive impact on everything from the price of household goods and price of groceries and everything else. I mean, you're in the trade, you're on the trade committee. How does your committee look at this? I mean, are you? I mean, I got to ask you honestly. I don't know if you're talking to a lot of your Republican colleagues. Are they seeing the danger? Are they afraid of going against the House? I mean, against the White House? I mean, what is your vibe on the committee? I mean, this is going to be a big deal.
Yeah, on the transportation committee, you mean?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think the big impact on transportation is that we are ceding American leadership to the Chinese. So Trump, and it maybe has as much to do with the energy policy direction of Trump than the tariffs themselves. But look, he wants to kill off clean energy. He wants to just double and triple down on fossil fuel and count on the whole world to start signing up for all of our fossil fuel, stop doing electric cars, stop doing battery storage. And the Chinese are just going to fill that void. They're already doing it. They're already way ahead of us on electric cars.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you manage for that with tariffs when he doesn't want electric cars in the United States, and he doesn't want us selling our electric cars anywhere else in the world either. So it's really just ceding the future to this country that we say is our biggest geopolitical rival.
Right, exactly, and that's not even the start of it. Obviously, for your district and everything else, as we talk about international relations, the ICE raids they promised have started. The deportations have started. Your district's the majority rural. I mean, you've got most of a rural district. I mean, up and down the coast. For those that we talked about in the intro, you go for the Golden Gate all the way to Oregon, a vast swath of beautiful land in our country. There's big impacts that are going to happen. Are you seeing impacts already, even with the threats of these raids and these deportations?
Yeah,
And we're hearing rumors that
we
people
are
are self-deporting already.
I don't know about self-deporting, but the fear is palpable. I'm hearing it everywhere I go. And, this is the 1-2 punch with tariffs and trade wars. And then you add in the workforce that is about to be decimated by mass deportations and fear, people wanting to either leave or not allow their kids to go to school or to hospitals and things like that because they're afraid of deportation. You're going to grind this economy to a halt. And in my district, we're going to feel that in the agricultural sector because we got a lot of farm workers.
Yeah.
We're going to feel that in the service sector because these are a lot of folks that work the restaurants and the hospitality industry and so forth. And I'll tell you where it's also being felt, Fred, Indian country. I represent more tribes than anyone in the lower 48 of America. And I spent an hour yesterday with tribal leaders throughout my district. Native children are being rounded up in schools because somebody at ICE thinks they look like immigrants. And this is happening. It's been happening to Indians in New Mexico and other places. They're being harassed and detained, profiled, because Donald Trump is out there saying you can tell what these illegal immigrants look like. They have a certain look, and off go the ignorant ICE agents, and they start rounding up the original Americans. The idea of Native Americans being swept up in mass deportation is just appalling on so many levels.
And they've got quotas. I mean, we found out now that they told the agents you got a quota. So I've been warning them for a while. I've been warning since last year. I experienced this in Iraq. I'm an Iraq veteran. The one thing we learned there is I had my Iraqi sheikhs tell me that the easiest way to get rid of your competitor, your neighbor you didn't like, was just to call up the government and say, and he's a terrorist or whatever it may be. They even used American troops that way. We had American troops sweep up our allies just from tips, right? And so it's no way. I mean, when now they've got a quota, they're just gonna arrest them, and they'll get credit for arresting them and let somebody else sort it out, won't they?
That's right. This dragnet is going to draw in a lot of innocent people, but that's the way they're rolling these days, Fred. You saw that he's creating a tip line now where if you're a federal employee, you can rat out your colleague in the cubicle next to you if they've ever had anything to do with a DEI initiative or, a climate program or anything that seems a little Green New Deal-ish. These are the purges that are underway in the federal workforce. And it's the same absurd filter that's going to lead to people being profiled and an awful lot of collateral damage in this mass deportation scheme.
Yeah, and the morale. I mean, I've got so many of my federal employee friends. I mean, so 1/3 of the federal workforce are veterans. I'm a veterans advocate still. I work with vote vets, as I mentioned. I've got so many friends close friends who work for the federal government. Matter of fact, Lourdes Tiglau, who ran the Center for Women in the VA, who just got fired, it was a dear friend of mine. I've got federal worker friends who are scared to death right now, and it is truly terrifying what they're facing. It is a campaign of terror against the people who are trying to serve our. Literally, they take an oath too, don't they?
Well, they do, and they serve us every day in really important ways. These are our food inspectors. There are air traffic controllers, right? Maybe that's something we would appreciate in a week like this. I don't know why they have been vilified the way they have, caricatured into this deep state nonsense. But we need them, and we need them to be non-political. And that's really the tragedy of what's going on here. Trump, this is Project 2025, right? This is Schedule F. This is the purging of the kind of federal employees that they don't like, and then replacing them with the ones that come through these MAGA training academies from the Heritage Foundation and others.
It is worse. It is, in many ways, I hate to say it, kind of the worst case scenario you and I talked about 7 months ago. It is a lot of the worst kind of things coming to fruition. I guess the question a lot of us are asking, Hunter, is you're sitting up there, you're sitting on the Hill. Obviously, I know you're hearing the rumblings from a lot of the rank and file, frustrated that perhaps the Democrat leadership is not doing enough. How do you answer that criticism, and how do you tell people, no, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing? I mean, what is Minority Leader Jeffries doing? Can you kind of tell our viewers, like, no, this is what we got?
Yeah, so it's a very important question, and you're right. I mean, it's on everyone's mind. Everything I say right now, I mean, I'm calling out Trump probably as aggressively as anyone you will find.
All your social medias are getting ready.
So what I get when I do it is people say, well, now do something. Right. And I think there's a little bit of a disconnect, maybe a sense that individual members of Congress have a little more power than we really do. I wish I had the power to do something. I wish I could just wave my hand and stop Schedule F, or shut down this mass deportation thing, or put an end to this OMB memo on my own and end the federal freeze that's going to do so much damage and chaos. But unfortunately, even as a party, Democrats in Congress, we're now in the minority. So what we have is a limited toolbox to work with. We've got outside groups that can litigate, right, and we will support them. We've got our bully pulpit, and we absolutely need to mobilize public opinion. So when we say things, we are doing something that matters. We are trying to leverage our positions to mobilize the important public opinion piece of all this. And then there are a few tools in the minority that we'll try to use effectively. They'll still need our vote to keep the government open. They'll still need our vote to raise the debt ceiling, and at a few other points, even though we're in the minority. If we're smart, we can leverage those moments and maybe get some wins out of this as well.
And it's a thin margin. I mean, it's down to 3 or 4 seats now, and they've alienated a lot of their peers. With the issue with the Intelligence Committee, Turner being pulled out of that, he was pretty pissed. I mean, they're doing a lot of own goals, if you will, that kind of play in your hands a little bit. And I know, having watched Mr. Jeffries for a while, and you guys, I imagine you're planning on trying to take advantage of that and see how you can build coalitions where you can, right?
Yeah, the 2026 midterms are not far away. And so our job for the next 2 years is to put maximum pressure on Republicans in tough seats to try to peel them off on some of these votes, get them to moderate a little bit. And if they don't, we got to go beat them and then bring in a Congress that will serve as a check and balance. Then we have a much better tool to work with than what we've got right now.
Yeah, and there's local elections going on. So I talk about quite a bit too, is 31 states have local elections. Obviously, Virginia and New Jersey have their governorships. I think there's local elections in California right now this year too. So even this year is an on year in a certain sense. And those local and regional elections have never been more important, I think, as sending a message. I mean, I think you saw maybe in Iowa where we flipped a Senate seat that had been a Trump 21. I mean, those sent a message, I think, that Trump's not. I think the other few people too, and I love you to address it, is I constantly hear from our friends on the left is, this is it. Fred, I can't believe you think there's going to be elections. This sort of doom and gloom. I mean, it's not a dictatorship. I mean, they're doing a lot of really evil stuff. They're doing some things, but it ain't one yet, is it?
Well, we're not dead yet. But look, I share the view that this is not a drill, right? This is a breakout to dictatorship, in my opinion. It is underway. And I suppose there are some people that think we've already crossed the Rubicon and just don't realize it yet. I think there's still some ways to stop it. And so, the things that we say, the way we mobilize and organize and engage in all those races you just mentioned, Fred, the way we try to leverage our minority status, even in this tough Congress, the way we litigate, add all of that up. And I think we've still got a chance to push this thing back and save it.
That's the key to everything. Now, I can't let you go. You're in Northern California, obviously your district, you're there now. Trump assures us there's a big faucet somewhere in your neighborhood of something that can turn on the water. Yep. Obviously, it's ridiculousness. There was a story that came out Friday about how he actually ordered the Corps of Engineers when he said he had the military go in and turn the water on. Turns out they turned on a couple of dams in Southern California on the wrong side of the mountains because he's not really good at geography. Obviously this is all ridiculous. These attacks on your state, the attacks on Governor Newsom, and how you guys are responding. But that water's in your neighborhood. There's not a spigot, is there?
There is no magic valve, and I listened with incredulity as Trump said that he was going to open the valve, yes, and unlimited water was going to flow from the Pacific Northwest and even Canada. And this is news to me because I've been working in California water for a long time, and I know where the infrastructure is. I know hundreds of miles away from anything that would connect to the Pacific Northwest and Canada. Much less, even if they wanted to send us their water, which they don't. So you physically cannot do it. And even if Trump could somehow use the federal water projects to move water where he wanted to, you're right, they stop in the San Juan. The only way to move water to Southern California is to use a state water project, and Trump has no control over that. So, it just makes your head hurt in so many different ways that he could be so deeply ignorant or disingenuous or whatever. But, meanwhile, we have this tragedy with the Los Angeles fires that had nothing to do with California water policy. And this is just another day in Trump's America where we're off chasing squirrels because he said something really stupid. And he's probably got federal employees scrambling around to try to explain what he really meant or to do something that can look like he's making good on a promise that he can't keep.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing. That story, the Corps of Engineers, not commenting, but apparently they did open 2 dams, almost flooded farmland that's already been flooded because it wasn't coordinated like normal. And by the way, they need the water for the summer. The whole point of keeping the water up there is because it's going to be another dry summer. This is the kind of stuff that scares me about what we face is this, the dictator says do it, so we have to do it, and we get in trouble. I know we're getting close to our time, so I don't want to keep you too much, but there's other things I want to talk about. Obviously, Rubio's going to Panama. That's going to affect your life. We could talk for days. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and let you go, but I really appreciate your time, sir, and we appreciate you fighting up there on the Hill for us, and keep up the fight, sir.
Well, thank you, Fred. And we got to be careful not to chase the squirrels. I really don't think that we're going to be taking back Greenland or seizing Panama or opening a magic valve. But we are going to see unprecedented threats right out of Project 2025 against our democracy and our fundamental rights and our environmental values. And it's going to be real and right in front of us. So I think you and me and everyone else are going to have our hands full trying to sort these things out and stay focused on the parts that matter.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
A great conversation with Congressman Huffman. I appreciate him taking his time. For those who pay attention, I found out that no elected officials, Congress or otherwise, showed up on ABC this week. So, hey, we're getting elected officials right here on Democracy Sunday. So this is your place for Sunday news from now on. I think we're making real gains on bringing great people. We got several thousand views tonight live. I really appreciate it. I wanted to note one thing. Obviously, a lot happened since Friday night. Jared Huffman is indeed in the fight. He put up this tweet that he understands your fear, exasperation, why so many of you demand that Democrats do something to stop Trump. I want you to know this Democrat's doing everything he can to think of to meet this moment and make a difference. If you have better ideas, I'm all ears. And knowing Congressman Huffman, that's actually true. I have reached out to him with better ideas. He actually put this list of 10 things he's confronting. The way it's kind of hard to read, but I'll just highlight a few. But he's meeting with coordinating, supporting state AGs and advocacy groups who are filing lawsuits to stop Trump's illegal actions and protect Americans from Project 2025. That's actually something that if you watch my regular show on Democracy with FPWellman that appears right here on Fridays and on the Midas Touch Network, I actually interviewed the head of Democracy Forward, who's had so much success suing the Trump administration already. If you guys aren't paying attention, they did sue and stop the OPM funding memo. They have sued to stop Doge itself. They've done a number of things like that. So there are groups that are organized and fighting. Congressman Huffman and others are working with them to help fight. State AGs also, or state governors and AGs filed. So there's actually 2 restraining orders right now against that ridiculous OPM funding freeze they tried to implement. In addition, he's working with fellow House Democrats to build unity. He's aggressively using his campaigns. And again, you can see 10 things. You can look it up on Congressman Jared Huffman's. It's literally just Jared Huffman on Twitter and on their social media. He's also on Blue Sky. I highly recommend you check it out. Again, we're looking to these guys for leadership. And I know we're almost out on time, so I won't go long. We went over on all the conversations because I had fun. It's what I do. But I'll tell you this: this is a red alert, right? What happened this weekend? That first story with Elon Musk acolytes having access to our Treasury records should terrify Americans. And I understand. I'm not going to harbor panic or terror, but it should be a red alarm. Just a blinking siren for our elected officials, and frankly, people who understand their role in government. And this is this is my frustration. We must demand, and I don't want to hear from you that, well, my state has red state, I'm a red state, so I've got Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt, for God's sake. The problem is this is their damn jobs. This goes beyond party politics. When you've got an unvetted, uncleared civilian, essentially, with access to your personal banking records. Look, we are well beyond the idea that it's Republican versus Democrat. Now we're into real live constitutional crisis. And there's no denying we are in a constitutional crisis right now as Congress and the Senate, led by Republicans, have completely abdicated their duty of checks and balances on the executive. That is the fact we're in. They're watching crimes unfold in real time and ignoring it. Some of them giggling about it. If you remember on the On Democracy episode this week, I showed, Mike Johnson just out giggling. He thinks it's hilarious that this is happening. It's not. And the courts are slow, but we are in a constitutional crisis like I've never seen. And we've threatened it. We've talked about it, but it's real. So you must contact all of your congressmen, contact all of your senators, say, I demand you to do your job. This is not about party anymore. This is about real danger to the very fundamentals of our economy and our personal lives. Because I don't want some fucking tech bro who works with Elon Musk, who's on ketamine. You guys, they moved sofa beds into the Eisenhower Executive Office building, like it's Twitter headquarters when he moved in Twitter. Okay, they're working 24/7 to do what? To do what? And no one's asking that goddamn question that has the power to do something about it. And so we need real live leaders to step up. So if your congressman's one of them, get on their ass. Okay, this is a real life red alert, and I don't say that often. I don't want to. But we've got to get involved. In the meantime, I'll let you go. That's your call to action this week, you guys. Okay, that's your call to action. I see a lot of conversation about all this. I appreciate what you're saying there, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to do. We're not. This is now. This is more than just one group trying to take over. As I mentioned at the top, you've got Stephen Miller and his evil plans for deportations, and that Tom Homan guy who's a damn evil character out of Lethal Weapon. We've also got the Elon Musk guys who want to move fast to break things. The tech bros, those are the enemies. I don't want to. I'm not. I've been asked why I'm not pursuing the 14th Amendment thing because I live in the here and now, and Congress isn't going to freaking enact the 14th Amendment. His cabinet's not going to do the 25th Amendment. We've got to fight these events that are occurring with the tools we have available that could and will work. And that is in this world right now. So I really feel strongly we've got to get involved right now. Having said that, you can get involved yourself right here by subscribing. I know a lot of you are not watching on YouTube. I urge you, I beg you, I plead with you, please go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the alert button. We've got a new show coming. I can't wait to introduce you guys. It's a really wonderful show with some cool people you'll love. That's coming. We've got new videos. I'm starting a new I'll be doing breaking news updates because there's so much going on. Waiting several days to do a podcast about it isn't working for me anymore. So you'll start seeing shorts and short hot takes like this, where I'll sit down in front of the camera right here in my home studio and throw a video up to give you breaking news. All that's coming, but you got to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Blue Sky. It's FPWellman. I'm FPWellman everywhere. FPWellman official on Twitter, or excuse me, on Instagram and Threads. In the meantime, follow us. Our Substack's blowing up, folks. FPWellman.substack.com. Huge number of new subscribers. I'd love for you guys to subscribe to that. That's where I do all of my writing about what's going on, offering my perspective during the week. This week, I wrote about this Elon Musk attack. I called out Senator Tom Cotton by name for the fact that he's not said a damn word when someone who's outside our government has all of our personal data, when he was worried about China. Someone, by the way, who has close ties to China. So if that's your concern, then where are you now? So that's the Substack. I really would love you to subscribe. You can subscribe completely for free. If you want to pay, that's how we pay for things like me and JJ's time, and Katie, our producer. That's how that's paid for. So any help you can get, chip in a subscription. We'd really appreciate it. In the meantime, tell your friends about the show. Follow us. We have an On Moxie channel, Blue Sky, but tell your friends. Join us right here every week. We've got a lot of cool stuff going on. I really appreciate your time. In the meantime, it's up to us. No one's going to save us, guys. No one's going to save us. It's up to you and me to step up where we can. Support groups like Democracy Forward. Support groups that are getting in the fight to sue these guys. Contact your congressman. Use your voice. Do not obey in advance. Do not believe in advance. And that's how we're going to beat this thing. It's that time for us to come together. With that, I appreciate you guys. It's so good seeing the comments. Thank you for everything, and we'll see you right here next week live.